Good morning. In accordance with Section 45 and 53 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment of the City of Toronto is called to order. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning that applies to property, permission to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses, and consent to sever property to create new lots. We acknowledge the land we're meeting on is a traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, and the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 of the Mississaugas of the Credit. Committee of Adjustment public hearings are now conducted in a hybrid in-person and virtual format. Some applicants and participants may make their submissions in person, and others will participate virtually by electronic means through WebEx, an online digital platform. The meetings are also streamed on the City of Toronto YouTube channel for City of Toronto Planning Department, and anyone wishing to view the hearing may watch on YouTube. Those who want to participate virtually and have registered in advance will be connecting with their computer, tablet, smartphone, or telephone and have the option of participating via video or audio only. All virtual participants will automatically be muted on entry. When your item is called, you will be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. We also ask that you mute your devices until you're called on to speak. Those participating by video appearance will be temporarily upgraded to panelist when your item is being held. During this time, your camera will be enabled. You will only be visible during your 5-minute allotted speaking time. At all other times, your video will be disabled and you will be reinstated as an attendee. For both in-person and virtual participants, Committee of Adjustment staff will share presentations submitted in accordance with a written submission deadline. Those participating through WebEx are not allowed to use share screen and any other panelist controls during a video appearance. The host will remove you from panelist role if you fail to respect that instruction. People attending in person today who wish to receive a copy of the decision of the Committee of Adjustment must fill out a decision request card, and those participating virtually need to submit a written request for a decision by email. Please ensure that you include your name, address, and email address because the Committee of Adjustment and the Toronto Local Appeal Body will be sending notifications and appeal updates by email. If you do not agree with the decision of the committee, you may be able to appeal the decision to the Toronto Local Appeal Body or, in some limited circumstances, the Ontario Land Tribunal. However, the provincial government amended the Planning Act and generally removed rights of third parties to appeal Committee of Adjustment decisions. Only the applicant, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, specified persons, and public bodies, as those terms are defined in the Planning Act, are permitted to appeal decisions of the Committee of Adjustment. Appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decision of the committee. I will call each item in the order listed on the agenda. When an application is uncontested, the agent or applicant may proceed with their presentation if desired. When the committee does not require a presentation, applicants are to advise the chair should they wish to speak to the committee. The committee may ask questions and/or take the matter into committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant or agent, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee. I will comment when you reach your 5-minute mark. Any presentation or other materials you wish to submit to the committee must have been emailed in advance of the hearing. Staff and committee members cannot accept materials at the hearing. When addressing the committee, please clearly state your name and address. Please remember to confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. The applicant or agent will proceed first and will make a presentation to the committee on the application. Please note that the committee may not entertain revisions to proposals at the hearing today. The committee may decide to defer the application if substantially revised to ensure the revised application is accurate and that all those entitled to notification of the application are informed of the changes. Then, individuals either in support or opposed of the application will be invited to speak. Generally, we call on speakers in the hearing room and those participating through WebEx after that. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker after they are finished their presentation. When all speakers are finished, the applicant or agent has the opportunity to rebut only those issues that were raised by the speakers. This will mark the end of the discussion. The application will then be taken into committee for a decision. Okay, now before I hear the first item. We've got some confirmation of minutes from the last hearing. So we require a motion for those two. I believe there's two confirmation of minutes, or just one? There's two. There's two.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair and panel members. There's one set of minutes to be adopted for January 18th hearing. The members present include Mr. Allison and Mr. Reed, as well as Mr. Schwartz, Mr. Auspus, and Ms. Martin.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a motion to adopt the minutes?
Chair, I'm happy to move approval.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Do I have a seconder? Second by Ms. Casson. All in favor? The motion carries. Okay, thank you. Are there any declarations of interest of the panel or staff for any of the items in the allocated slot? Great, no declarations. Are there any deferral requests this morning?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there are no deferral requests.
Okay. And lastly, are there any files to be closed?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, there are two files. The first one is a minor variance application for 1072 Eglinton Avenue West. File number is A0648/23NY, and it has been withdrawn by the applicant.
Okay. Do I have a motion to close the file? Okay, we have a motion from Mr. Reed. Do I have a seconder? Second by Ms. Casson. All in favor? The motion carries. Are there any other items to be closed? There's one more, I believe.
Yes, through Mr. Chair, 2619 Bayview Avenue, also minor variance application. File number is A0045/23NY, and the reason also has been withdrawn, the application.
Okay, thank you. Can I have a motion to close the file? Motion by Mr. Reed, second by Ms. Casson. All in favor? The motion carries. Thank you. Okay. If there are no other items to address before we get to the first file. Okay. So moving along, item number 1 on our agenda this morning is for 388 GLENCAIRN Avenue. The application is a proposal to construct a new 3-story dwelling and a cabana. I've got variances for east side yard setback for a platform, east side yard setback for a canopy, building length, building depth, FSI, east side yard setback, west side yard setback, and driveway width. On file, I have material from the applicant, as well as a memorandum from Forestry, Transportation, as well as a letter of opposition from 372 and 391 GLENCAIRN Avenue. Do we have the applicant with us?
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Just for the record, it's last name Bronskill, Bronskill, first initial D for David, here on behalf of the applicant, and just for staff, the address is 333 Bay Street, Suite 3400 in Toronto.
Thank you. Staff, did you get that information there? The volume is a little bit. You did, thank you. Okay.
Mr. Chair, did you want me to proceed with a presentation?
Yes. Yes, I would.
Thank you,
Keep the
sir.
Timer up on the screen. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as you noted, this is a set of variances that would permit a new 3-story dwelling on the house, on the lot, sorry. We note there are the reports from Forestry and Transportation with conditions of approval. We have no concerns with those conditions, and should the committee see fit to authorize the variances, we would recommend that those conditions be opposed. There's also no memorandum in opposition from City Planning, and there have been contact, obviously, with the City Planning Department. Mr. Chair, I'm going to touch on really 2 variances in my overview. One will relate to the FSI, and then one's going to relate to the length depth. If I could ask staff, we had a set of presentation materials, and I was going to start, frankly, with the pretty picture first, Mr. Chair, which I sometimes do not do, and that's pages 8 and 9 of that package. And the reason, Mr. Chair, is I just think they give the committee a good understanding of the shape of the proposed dwelling before I then explain the variances. So if I could ask staff just to flip to pages 8 and 9 of that PDF. One is from the front and one is from the rear. And they go to 2 aspects of the design. Thank you. That's the front. And I just wanted to flag for the committee, you can see there is a 3rd story. It is within the roof line. The space within that roof line can be used as the 3rd story because of those dormers, but you have no height variances in front of you, either for total height or those main wall heights that you see. And as I talk about the length and depth in a minute, you can also see, therefore, because of the roof line, how that 3rd floor is stepped back into the volume. If I could ask staff go to the next page, then I just wanted the committee to be able to see the rear, because the length and depth that is being sought for 24.12 meters is ultimately associated with the family room that you see there on the right, and it's a 1-story extension. And I'll talk about the first, second, and third sort of, I'm going to call it main structure length and depth in a moment, but I just wanted to see how it's the 1-story, the committee can see it's the 1-story that extends. If I could ask staff and just go back up in that presentation to the color site plan, if you don't mind. Thank you very much. So you can see in green, Mr. Chair, the existing house and the existing garage that's at the rear. That garage will be demolished, obviously, and you can see that that 1st-story piece, that outdoor room I just showed you, sits partially where that garage is today and adjacent to the garage of the next door neighbor and the driveway of that next door neighbor. An integral garage is proposed as part of this structure. It actually does have a car lift that allows then parking in the basement, but that garage is essentially removed, and in many respects, in terms of the built form relationship, is then replaced by that 1-story addition. The main part of the dwelling, 1st floor and 2nd floor, have a length of 18.47 meters. That's slightly longer than the 17, but slightly shorter than the 19 permitted depth in the bylaw. So the main structure itself, Mr. Chair, I want to submit to the committee, has a length and depth largely in keeping with what's contemplated by the bylaw. It's really just that 1-story piece, as you can see, partially at the back, largely where the garage is, that's triggering the 24.12. I would suggest to the committee as a potential condition of approval to ensure that the dwelling itself doesn't extend any further back, might be that you make this substantially in accordance with the site plan, so that the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd floors, as they are staggered, don't extend any deeper in the lot than the 18.47 meters that I just noted for you. The 3rd floor itself, Mr. Chair, is 15.27 meters in its length. So it really does get smaller as you go up. Finally, Mr. Chair, we did include FSI variances for you as a colored chart, just numerically, so that the committee could understand that what is being sought here today in terms of a number at 0.76. There are obviously some that, sorry, just back up one. That's it. Thank you, staff. Yeah. There are some that are obviously less, but there is a full range here. 0.4 is 0.5, 0.6 is 0.7s, 0.8s, 0.9s, and Mr. Chair, I would never rely on a 100, but it's there on the map just to show you the full range of what's being approved within this overall neighborhood. So,
Final remarks?
Mr. Chair, that's the presentation at 5 minutes. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for the applicant at this time?
Chair, I have a question.
Yes? Yes,
Comment and a question, actually. Thank you very much for that explanation with respect to the building depth and building length. Very clear understanding of the staggering effect of the building and why these variances are called up. Just with respect to the last variance, number 8, are you okay with the 2 conditions that Transportation Services have requested?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes. If staff could just scroll down slightly on that site plan, it's a very good question. You can see where the driveway width narrows as it comes to the street. In part, it does get a little narrow there. It's intended to maximize front yard landscaping. It pairs with the driveway adjacent. It's for that portion and then widens out. And so the annotation requested by transportation staff is certainly warranted, and we are in support of both conditions.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Okay, thank you. I believe you noted in your presentation there was some recommendations that you did not agree with. To the question to the applicant, which specifically recommendations are you referring to again?
Mr. Chair, if I left that impression, I apologize. We are fine with all of the conditions recommended by forestry and transportation staff. And I would even suggest a further condition just because of how the length and depth is deployed for the first floor, that there be a condition included that any approval be substantially in accordance with the site plan. That way, the main wall of the first floor, second floor, third floor would not extend any further north.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Any other questions at this time? No? Okay. We have another speaker as well. Mr. Bronskill? Oh, that is Mr. Bronskill. Okay. Ms. Myers, I believe.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the agent speaking is Mr. David Bronskill.
Okay, great. Do we have any other speakers? Okay. No other speakers. Any other questions? Okay. If there's no other questions, we will move into committee now for a brief discussion, followed by decision.
Sure, just a comment. Even though we're looking at 8 variances, it appears as though there are many variances, but in essence, what we're dealing with are really 6 variances. 4 relate to side yards, 2 relate to building length and depth, the other relates to FSI, and the last relates to, the 4th one relates to driveway. With respect to the driveway one, number 8, the applicant has no concerns with the conditions that are being imposed. And I believe the glaring, to anyone just looking at the numbers, the glaring variance that's being requested is with respect to length and depth, but that relates to the fact that the building is designed in such a way that it's stepping back and staggered. And the applicant has provided an excellent presentation on the justification for those 2 variances, I believe.
I would just like to mention as well, further to what my colleague just mentioned, there's no variances for rear yard setback or landscape coverage in the backyard or the front yard. So I think from that point of view, the building length is reasonable considering it's just for a portion of the building.
We have a motion.
Chair, I prefer to make a motion on this item. I believe that the variances that are being requested are indeed appropriate for this site and for the project that's being proposed. It's a reasonable sized residential structure for the area, compatible and desirable as far as the scale and character, evolving character of the neighborhood. I want to move approval of the application subject to one of the conditions that the applicant very fairly suggested, that the project proceed and be subject to the construction progressing substantially in accordance with the site plan as presented today and as filed, with transportation conditions of February the 6th, urban forestry condition number 2, and they've provided an arborist report as well. I did give consideration to the letters of objections, the 2 letters of objections. They both related to length and depth, but I believe there was proper justification for that. So move approval, subject to it being substantially built in accordance with the site plan, traffic conditions of February the 8th, 2 conditions, and urban forestry condition number 2.
Any concern tying to the elevation drawings, or is a site, do you feel that the site plan is sufficient enough to?
To me, the site plan that the applicant presented today and the color-coded, I think, pretty well fixes them to that. I have no problem in adding that. If chair or any member of the panel wants to add that, I don't have a problem with that. But I think the colored presentation that was forwarded to us, I believe, late in the week, and that the applicant referred to explains the various levels and the terracing and the staggered effect of the building.
Okay. Yeah. I have a seconder.
Sure,
I
I'll
presume?
second, thanks.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have a seconder. Okay. All in favor? Okay, the motion carries. The application is approved.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Moving on to item number 2, 42 Capel Avenue. Purpose of the application is a proposal to construct a new single-family detached dwelling. This is an application that was deferred from a June 8th, 2023 hearing. Before us, we have variances for front yard canopy setback, north and south side yard setbacks, FSI, and building depth. On file, I have materials from the applicant, which include a planning rationale report, correspondence between the applicant and neighbors, memorandum from Urban Forestry, a letter of objection from 40 and 42 Capel Avenue, as well as material from the previous hearing when the application was deferred. Do we have the applicant with us?
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair, committee members. Graham Barrett, SGL Planning and Design, 1547 Bloor Street West, agent for the owners of 42 Capel Avenue.
Great, thank you. Okay, we've got 5 minutes on the clock. If we could hear a brief presentation from you.
Sure, I submitted some presentation materials. If those could be put up on screen, that would be great. As you mentioned, I submitted a planning rationale as well on January 5th, but I will not be able to cover everything in 5 minutes, so I will address key points and answer any questions you may have. This item was deferred, as you mentioned, due to neighbor opposition and a request from Councillor Robinson. This property has been before this committee or in the planning process several times. Efforts have been made to communicate with neighbors over the years, and several are in support of this application. Our clients have compromised and revised to get to this point. If you can go to slide 2, please. A new single detached dwelling with an in-law suite in the basement is proposed. This will not be a separate dwelling unit, but if it were, it would be allowed as of right. You can go to slide 3, please. You will note I'm sorry, you're not on slide 3 there. If you could scroll back to the actual site elevations. Perfect, that's the third one. Thank you. Note the attention to privacy here. On the south elevation on the left, the ground floor windows will be glass block. The upper floor windows are for a child's bedroom and a Jack and Jill bathroom. Those will have window coverings for privacy, as most windows do. All side-facing windows on the north elevation will be glass block. A 6-foot-high privacy screening is being provided on the north and south sides of the rear second-story balcony, which requires no variances from the zoning bylaw. Since last June, the owners have been in touch with their neighbors to the north who had valid concerns about a tree on their property. You can go to slide 4, please. Our client has revised their plans, stepping in the basement at the northwest corner and cantilevering the upper floors over the tree protection zone using a helical pile system. An updated arborist report has been submitted, and it's the arborist's professional opinion that the tree will survive. I'm aware that urban forestry conditions 1 and 2 will be required, as a city tree in the front also requires removal, but it is in very poor health. Next slide, please. We have 5 minor variances being requested. The first 3 are all to do with side yard setbacks. If you go to the next slide, please. 0.9 meters is required. The proposed setbacks are shown in green at 0.61 meters on the north side, 0.77 meters on the south. The existing setbacks are shown in blue at 0.3 meters on the north side, 0.74 meters on the south. And neighboring setbacks are shown in red. We have 0.44 meters for 44 Capel to the north and 0.52 meters for 40 Capel to the south. This will be an improvement over existing conditions and slightly greater than the setbacks provided by both adjacent properties. And 40 Capel applied for and received approval for a north side yard setback variance of 0.6 meters in 2011. This lot is somewhat pie-shaped, results in a setback of 0.77 meters at the front and 1.18 meters at the rear. It's along the south side. The rear of the dwelling complies with the bylaw at the south side. There's also a portion of the dwelling that jogs in along the north with a setback of 1.21 meters. The setback variance for the canopy is also quite minor, 0.742 meters. That's shown in purple. Go to the next slide, please. Just a quick view of the canopy variance I just mentioned. Following variances for floor space index. You can go to the next slide, please. We have an FSI of 0.68 proposed, where 0.6 is the maximum. This represents an increase of 32.69 square meters, or roughly 350 square feet. This FSI is very similar to other approvals close by, including 40 Capel at 0.688 approved in 2011, and considerably less than 46 Capel at 0.79 approved in 2020. And in researching past applications, go to the next slide, where 500 meters, within 500 meters where FSI variances were proposed, we identified 60 approvals where 0.6 was the max. This was done quite some time ago, so it only reflects approvals between 2007 and 2018, except for 46 Capel from 2020. And 52 of these applications had greater numbers for FSI than the proposal before you today. I know precedence doesn't dictate this committee's decision, but it certainly shows trends in the area. Next slide, please. Building depth. 19.134 meters is proposed, where 17 meters is the max. This is triggered by an excavated area in the basement under a rear covered porch shown in red on the screen. If this room were unexcavated, there would be no depth variance. Next slide, please. The building length complies with the zoning bylaw at 16.915 meters. The variance for building depth will be imperceptible from the street or neighboring properties, as it's all below grade. This variance also doesn't impact the neighboring tree, as the excavated portion is outside the TPZ. So to sum up, this proposal as revised passes the 4 tests. The variances are minor. Proposal is similar in terms of scale, massing, and character to much of the development happening in the neighborhood and on the same block. It's in keeping with the intent of the OP for a neighborhood's land use designation and in keeping with the intent of the zoning bylaw. Its performance standards are not being exceeded unreasonably. The owners have worked with some of their neighbors to get to this point, and support has been provided by 34, 36, 44 Capel, at 135 and 145 Ronan. And I'm of the opinion this proposal represents good planning and doesn't conflict with the public interest. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have any questions? Okay, no questions at this time. We can have our another speaker on this file.
Hello?
Good morning. If you could just state your name and address for us, please.
Yes, hi, my name is Janice Barnett. I live at 40 Capel Avenue. I am directly one house south of 42 Capel. I'm here to speak regarding my letter of opposition to the length of the building, or I should say the depth of the building, created by, as Mr. Barrett mentioned, the basement, but also the second floor concrete balcony, which I feel is a privacy concern for me. I also have concerns about the south-facing windows, which are smack dab across from my bedroom hallway and provide a view through to into my house. And I also have concerns about a basement window well on the south side of 42 Capel, which I haven't had no clarity from. At the last committee of adjustment, it was the applicants were directed to reach out to the neighbors. Perhaps they reached out to other neighbors, but they did not reach out to me to have a conversation regarding design and my concerns. They, the last email I had from them was beginning of July, which had not to do with the concerns with the balcony, the windows. I reached out to them actually last week when I received the application in the email, in the mail again, and I proposed, as even though I opposed the extended length of the building, that all the other new builds in our neighborhood have been able to comply with the 17 meters, and they are asking for 19.14, I believe it was. I was proposed a solution for that, so that it's not as much of a privacy issue for me and our family, to have a 6-foot setback off the south wall, so that the balcony does not start until 6 feet north of 42 south wall. And I'm also asking them to plant some ornamental beech trees, which are very narrow and will grow high and will obscure their view of my backyard, or at least the portion of my backyard that I spend most of my time in. I have not had this design request. I think it's a very reasonable and doable design request. I've had no acknowledgement of the fact that the windows are directly on the south side, on the second floor, are directly across from mine. And I've had no acknowledgement of the status of the window well. I feel it's a tripping hazard, considering there's only 6 feet in between our houses. And I've had no concrete information on the dimensions of it. So I'm asking that the design of the house be only approved if the conditions are that the windows on the second floor are shifted away from my second story bedroom hallway window, that the back concrete balcony is set back by 6 feet, and that some ornamental beech trees or any other ornamental tree is planted to obscure the view, and also to replace the healthy tree that's going to be removed exactly in that position, and to address the situation with the window well and whether or not it complies with the bylaw or not, and so that it's not a tripping hazard. And I've outlined also in my objection letter that really any light coming into that window well is very, very limited, because it's in between two very tall walls. So I'm hoping that the applicant can see that I'm asking for a very, very small consideration with the 6-foot setback on the balcony, and to shift those windows along by a few feet. Thank you.
Thank you. I have just a technical question. Can you identify the window well, the subject window well that you mentioned? We can just pull up the basement plan or the site plan.
Yes, right there. There's no depth given to that window well from the south wall to the lot line. I don't know the bylaws on window wells, but perhaps it's not even necessary to have a window well. Or the other thing is just take that window away and position it somewhere else. It's a hole in the ground, so I would assume you would look at it as a tripping hazard.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Any questions? Okay, no questions. Thank you very much. We have any other speakers on this file?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there is no additional speakers.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to turn it back to the applicant. I'd like to give the applicant some time to respond to the comments from the last speaker. If we can get 5 minutes on the clock. I'd also like to remind the applicant any comments should be directly related to what was heard from the neighbor, providing no additional information other than just responding to that those remarks. We can get the applicant back with us.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'm here.
Yeah, so I'd just like to provide you an opportunity to speak to the neighbor's concerns.
Sure, gladly. Thank you. I've read Mrs. Barnett's submission, and I'd like to specifically address the comments about, lack of consultation. But there has been communication between the owners of 42 KAPPELE, who've done their best to be cordial, and their neighbors to the south via email. This has been shared with me. Some of it was maybe a little unpleasant last summer, and my clients are no longer comfortable speaking with their neighbors, particularly to discuss aspects of their proposal that are permitted as of right by the bylaw. They've made significant concessions and revisions based on prior comments received by these neighbors and others, and didn't feel that anything further would be gained by additional conversation. Some of the other concerns raised by Mrs. Barnett, the windows. There's no variance for these second-story windows. If you can pull up the planning rationale I provided, there's an appendix that has an image. It's a little difficult to get a clear shot of these windows, but I do find it strange to defend windows on a house, particularly when they are not unusual in terms of size, placement, or quantity. My clients have opted to construct most of the side-facing windows out of glass block to minimize privacy concerns. The two which are proposed to be standard windows are on the second floor in a bedroom and a bathroom intended for the owner's children, and will certainly have window coverings to address the concerns of anybody peering into them. Keep going. It's the very last page of this planning rationale. I find it difficult to understand how the adjacent neighbor has concerns about these windows when their own home has wide and long windows running along a substantial portion of the second floor of their own home facing my client's property. As I mentioned, it's visible. You can get there at the last page of the planning rationale submitted, but I will continue. With these windows next door, it's very difficult to find a place to put windows at 42 Capel so they don't line up. And side-facing windows on properties with tight setbacks are commonplace in Toronto, and that's why blinds exist. As for the window well, this is not a variance. The window well in question is shown on the site plan. You had it up a few moments ago. It's quite small. I don't have an exact dimension, but I think it's about 25, 30 centimeters from the wall of the house. There looks to be another 60, 70 centimeters between that and the property line. If there are any building code concerns regarding this window well and any safety issues, then those can be addressed at the building permit stage. So you're having a hard time finding this image, but it is the appendix of the planning rationale. Possibly the last page. So I know I'm running out of time, so I'm going to continue. As for the balcony, there are no variances required for the balcony. She's correct that it extends beyond the 17-meter building length maximum, but that is permitted, and it doesn't encroach into the required rear yard setback. Also, the building's south side yard setback at the rear of the home complies with the zoning bylaw at 1.18 meters, where 0.9 is required. The side yard setback variance is really only for the front corner of the house. The balcony is therefore permitted as of right. This is also the first time I've heard a neighbor complain about privacy screening. Generally, it's requested or required as a condition of approval by the committee, and our client thought it best to plan ahead and mitigate potential concerns about privacy and overlook conditions for their neighbors. The one other letter of opposition submitted raises the same concerns, but that letter comes from someone who I believe lives a street over. The neighbor also brought up trees, and there is a private tree to be removed, but it's less than 30 centimeters in diameter and not regulated by private tree bylaw. And we do appreciate the neighbor's suggestion regarding the planting of ornamental beech trees, but the owner will work with urban forestry and address conditions 1 and 2 appropriately. And if additional plantings are requested, they will comply with that. Beyond that, I don't think there's anything else to bring up. I think I've covered everything that she mentioned, but I do think that, construction in the city is a fact of life, and it would be nice if we all lived next door to a tiny bungalow on a site that would never be redeveloped, but that just isn't the case. And I maintain this passes the 4 tests, and the owners have made a lot of effort to work with the neighbors they could work with, and variances have been reduced or eliminated, and an important neighboring tree is being preserved. And the development fits well with the changing character of the neighborhood. Happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Any questions?
Just a couple of questions. Graham, you've answered most of the questions that I've had, that I have. I think the speaker, neighbor, really raised some interesting points, but I believe you've answered them all with respect to the side yards, urban forestry, etc. I just wanted to ask, are there any regulations regarding the window well under the building code?
Not that I'm aware of, although I'm admittedly not a building code expert. There are certainly no variances which have been identified for this window well.
Anything related to
If
safety?
something were to come up,
Sorry to interrupt. I was just questioning anything related to the safety of the window well.
Again, I am far from a building code expert,
Okay.
but I assume this would be brought up if during the building permit application
Of
process.
course. Thank you. So that's something the building department would be looking at as part of the building permit process and before you get a building permit, correct?
Yes, I would think so. And also, the designer is quite experienced and knows what he's doing. So I would think that the designer would have considered that while designing this home and working on this project for quite some time.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett.
There will also be a grate covering that well. As you can see, it's not shown on the plans, but that is pretty common to have a grate over a window well. So that should mitigate any safety concerns as well.
Any other questions? Okay. I had one question before we head into committee. It's a bit of an unusual circumstance whereby the applicant has proposed privacy screening. In reviewing the file, I noted that the adjacent neighbor actually had a preference for no privacy screening, but that was also with their suggestion that there be an additional setback on the balcony. I just wanted to, before we head into committee, I wanted to ask other members if how they felt with respect to privacy screening on this second-story balcony. I guess particularly in response to the neighbor asking for no privacy screening.
Generally, Chair, from my point of view, and I don't know how the other panel members feel, it is a built-up urban condition. When I examined the rear wall, the platform in the rear yard, I didn't feel that there was any need for any screening, and certainly the planning department in their review have not requested any.
Given that in particular, I guess with respect to the depth of the extension off the rear, given that it's only coming off the rear main wall so far, I guess that's to the point there regarding a lack of I guess need for a privacy screening if an approval was to be granted.
Again, Chair, I don't know how the other panel members feel. I don't think the length is an issue in my view. Having examined, I think the proposal is compatible and in character with a lot of the new additions, a lot of the new builds in the area that I'm familiar with. So I don't think the performance standards are being in any way denigrated, and I don't see an issue with the building length. I don't see an issue with the building length in terms of privacy, and that's my feeling.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
I don't have any other questions, so if members don't, we're prepared to move into committee. Okay. So we're in committee now. Sure, Mr. Reed?
Thanks, Chair. I'll start with some comments. I'd like to commend the applicant for making positive changes to the submission. I think that what we have before us is a supportable application. I think the fact that there are material improvements to the side yard setbacks, and those are the bulk of the variances being requested. I think that shows that they've made an effort to fit this into to the style of building that's happening. And this size of redevelopment is the common evolution of this area, and I get that. To the point of the rear second-story balcony screening, I usually support these, but in this case, the neighbor's not requesting it, and there's nothing preventing the owner from erecting that if they were to so want it. And because I do believe that sometimes it emerges as something that does increase the bulk of the proposed building as a visual sign. So I wouldn't be putting in a condition of approval for screening, but in all, I think that this is an appropriate development and that the variances being requested are minor. And if my colleagues have nothing further, I'm happy to move a motion to that effect of approval of the application subject to urban forestry condition 1 and 2.
Do I have a seconder? Second by Ms. Casson. All in favor? Okay, the motion carries. The application is approved. subject
Thank you,
to
Mr. Chair,
urban
members.
forestry condition. Thank you very much. Okay, moving
Thank you. Have a
on.
good day.
Item number 3. 316 Glen Park Avenue, proposal to construct a third-story addition and a two-story rear addition with a rear deck onto an existing dwelling. For variances, I have front yard setback, porch and porch canopy encroachment into a front yard setback, driveway width, east and west main wall height, number of stories, pedestrian entrance height, area of a front porch at the second story, area of a rear deck at the second story, eave projection at the west lot line, pipe encroachment into the front yard setback, porch, front porch enclosure encroachment, pipe encroachment into the west side lot line, and canopy encroachment into the front yard setback. I think I got them all. On file, we have material from the applicant, including arborist report, staff report from community planning, memorandum from transportation services, as well as letters of support from 737 Glen Grove Avenue and 312 and 315 Glen Park Avenue. We have the applicant with us.
Yes, my name is Joe Dome, 133 Torresdale Avenue, agent for the owners.
Okay. Just give us a moment. We need to hear a brief presentation on this. Yeah. It looks like we've reviewed the file, and it looks like we may have a few questions, but I don't think we need a formal presentation on this file.
I can go over, I can just do a short presentation if you prefer, just to go over some main points and to address transportation comments.
Well, the time is yours. Yeah, just with that in mind, just be mindful. Yeah, if you'd like to address transportation comments, because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Transportation Services is recommending deferral to address variance number 4. So perhaps you can speak to that. Yes, the floor is yours.
Yes, so first I just would like to address those transportation comments. And they did request a deferral for the driveway width. However, it is fairly surprising as it is an existing condition. And furthermore, driveway widths of this size or larger are a very common feature on the street, including right next door on either side, as well as across the street at 321 and 325, as well as numerous others, all within the immediate context. So we feel that the driveway width is entirely reasonable. And I would like to also highlight that a large number of the requested variances are due to the placement of the existing house, and a number of them only apply because the existing basement is considered a main floor. Planning staff have no concerns with the application, and in their report on file, they noted that that the existing condition of the basement and the ground floor and park contributes to the third-story variance, and that they, in their opinion, the overall massing proposed is compatible with the prevailing character of the neighborhood. If I'm to address the front yard setback, also, I'd just like to point out it only pertains to the main floor box window on the east side, whereas the majority of the setback actually ranges from 6.15 meters to 6.71 meters. The variances 5 and 6 refer to the proposed main wall height, and much of the side main walls on both sides of the dwelling are actually 7.5 meters. The variance pertains only to smaller peaked portions of the side main wall, and the west side second floor is also stepped back significantly from the lot line, and the entirety of the rear two-story addition is set back further from the west lot line and more than complies with the bylaw on the east side. And variance number 7, number of floors, through variance 15 are all due either to existing conditions or being technical in nature due to the basement being considered as the main floor. And I'd just like to finally highlight that the proposal complies with the bylaw for lot coverage, overall height, side yard setbacks, rear yard setbacks, soft landscaping variances, and the length of the dwelling is only 14.9 97 meters and does not extend as far as the adjacent neighbors' main walls or other larger, newer builds on the streets. And there are many elements incorporated in the design to break up the massing. And as mentioned, we have 3 letters of support on file from adjacent neighbors at 312 Glen Park, as well as directly behind the subject property at 737 Glen Grove and 315 Glen Park across the street. And overall, we feel the application is reasonable and minor in nature, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions?
I just have one question. On the site plan, it indicates that the existing curb cut is to remain. It's not dimensioned, and I think that was one of the questions Transportation Services was asking. Do you know what that dimension is? It appears to almost be the width of the driveway, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have the exact dimension, but of course that will be rectified in the drawing submitted. That will be added.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, I see we have no other speakers, and if there's no other questions at this time, we will move into committee. Thank you very much.
Chair, if you'll indulge me just for a moment, I did have a question with respect to the curb cut. I'm sorry.
No problem. Let's move out of committee. If you ask a question of the applicant.
I wanted to ask, are you okay with a 4.76 curb cut and just raise the other 1.22? I mean, that still accomplishes the same thing, does it not?
Yes.
So to reduce the curb cut so that it would be 4.76, that's what you're asking for, correct?
Oh, well, I mean, the existing curb cut is currently shown to remain. But I mean, any requirements to satisfy transportation planning, that would be okay.
Yeah, but transportation wants a driveway, I believe, at 3.86. Isn't that the case?
Yes, but
So just
I mean,
just a simple question. Sorry to interrupt, just to get this going so I don't delay. Are you okay with raising part of the curb to allow only for a curb cut of 4.76? You still have that
well,
1.22
ideally,
pavers?
that should be okay if that's a condition of committee. That would be okay. I know that the owners, of course, would prefer to keep the remaining the existing curb cut. But if that is a condition by committee, then that would be acceptable.
I don't know how the other panel members feel, but maybe this might be a halfway answer rather than applying a transportation condition. I'm sure Luigi's not going to get upset that we're allowing a 4.76 meter cut when currently there's a larger one there.
Is that that's a statement, I presume?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. Okay. Are there any other questions for the applicant? No. Okay. So we're going to move back into committee right now. Thank you to the applicant. I generally, I'll just make a brief note about the curb cut. I mean, generally with these applications, we see where we do see a reduced curb cut. It doesn't prevent the applicant from, what's the word we used the last hearing? Splaying the driveway out or curving the driveway up towards the walkway. So minimizing the curb cut, but then widening the driveway. And it doesn't look, I mean, that as long as they're within their, the zoning provisions, the meeting the requirements of soft landscaping and whatnot, it is their, their choice with respect to a landscape plan. But I agree with your observation. I would support reduced curb cut here to make the ensure that the application is more in line with the 4 tests, or particularly the variance, I should say, variance number 4.
Mr. Chair, I would, if this was a new house, I would support that, but considering it's an existing curb cut, it's not changing the way it's going to look on the house once it's redeveloped, so I don't really see the need to change the curb cut width. I'm not sure what could be gained from that.
Okay. Mr. Reid.
Thank you, Chair. I think just the nature of our comments here are kind of leading to that there's not much issue we have with the built form that's being proposed, right? I think the house is very reasonable, and what's happening is good. Putting the density in the middle really minimizes the impacts. The issue, I guess, is the garage, is the driveway, and I have some concerns about it because the driveway is over width, and then immediately adjacent to that is a paved walkway. So adding those two together, you're almost up to 6 meters. And I understand what the agent's saying, that this is a common situation in the area. But I don't think the fact that it's common makes it desirable. So anyway, I don't see that, adding a small strip of landscape makes a material difference. But if we do approve this, I would like to, seeing as it's repaving the asphalt driveway, I would like to make a condition that the asphalt driveway be constructed with permeable pavers as a compromise.
I think that sounds reasonable. We have a motion, perhaps? Mr. Gully, Ms. Casson?
Within committee and commenting, right?
We're within committee now. I guess the question is whether or not we're ready for a motion at this point.
Peter makes an excellent point, and that's why I was suggesting if at least the curb cut could be reduced so that, you can keep the 476, and I don't really want to impose pavers for that whole driveway. The sidewalk, the 1.2, I believe it's 1.2, those are pavers. So maybe a little bit punitive, I'm not sure. And I know that you don't mean that to be punitive, Peter, but the driveway is almost 6 meters. It's like it's very wide. That's a commercial standard for two-way driveway. Well, two-way driveway is 7.2, this is almost 6. So I would be, I've analyzed Luigi's comment very carefully in what they're saying, and that's indeed the goal. But I think the other panel member made an excellent comment. It's already there. Can we improve it a little bit? And I think improving it a little bit is by reducing that curb cut. So you got to raise that curb cut by 1.2, I think. I don't think that's too much to ask. What they're requesting is variances that are mostly technical in nature. The rest are compatible to the built form in the area. So,
yeah, I support your comments there. The variance 4 was actually the one variance that I had some concern with coming into this, and it supports kind of my feeling on the matter, seeing as that two other of the members kind of flagged that variance as a potential concern, just given the width. As well, I might add the comments from transportation flagged as well.
yeah, and I guess maybe if we can get direction from staff, I would like to authorize variance number 4 because they're proposing a 4.76 meter wide driveway. Authorize that variance, but as a condition to that they raise the curb cut and only provide 4.76 for the curb cut as well.
We need some clarification from staff on a potential wording.
Through you, Mr. Chair, in terms of the conditions that are proposed to be, or recommended to be imposed by Transportation Services, it does recommend that the curb cut be reduced to 3.86 meters. So again, that would have to be amended if it's chosen to be imposed.
Okay. Sounds like we might have a motion to put forward.
Sure. I don't know if Peter wants to make the motion?
Thanks. Yeah, thanks. I'll go ahead and see where this goes. I do agree that that shortening the curb cut would make sense on the street, and it would, offer up some more space for on-street parking and would lessen the impact of that driveway. And also present a more attractive and more green boulevard and front yard. So I will, I'll move approval of the application subject to community planning conditions. And I'm not going to adopt the transportation conditions wholesale, but let's say that the curb cut, with the condition that the curb cut be reduced to 3.86 meters to satisfy one of the core concerns from transportation, and also approved on condition that the asphalt driveway be constructed with permeable pavers.
Do I have a seconder?
Make a friendly amendment.
Of course, Mr. Gully.
To authorize variance number 4, but not apply the planning condition, the transportation condition, but that the curb cut be reduced to 4.76. Curb cut be reduced to 4.76, and that the boulevard be restored for that additional 1.2.
I'm fine with that as long as we can keep the permeable paver condition.
Okay.
Just because to make up for the additional width and the fact that they're reconstructing it anyway.
Yeah.
So that'll address some of the runoff concerns that I think that bylaw goes to address.
Okay.
Okay, we have a,
Do you want me to remake that motion or no? Staff?
Yes, if you can repeat that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Fine. I move approval of the application subject to community planning conditions, that the driveway be reduced to the curb cut be reduced to 4.76 meters, and the boulevard be restored, and that the reconstructed driveway be constructed with permeable pavers.
we have a seconder. Second by Ms. Casson. Okay. All in favor? Okay, Mr. Reed and Ms. Casson, those opposed? Mr. Gully on record for being opposed. Okay, motion carries. The application is approved as amended. Okay, how are we doing? We ready for maybe a 5-10 minute break at this time? Yeah. Yeah, let's take 10. We'll reconvene at 11:15 a.m. Does that sound good? Okay, thank you. All right, we're back. We're on item number 4.
Okay.
179 McKee Avenue. The application is a proposal to construct a new single-family dwelling with variances for building length, lot coverage, side exterior main wall height, stair width, number of stories, rear platform area at a second story. On file, I have materials from the applicant, including memorandum from Urban Forestry, as well as a staff report from Community Planning, and a letter of concern from 170 Norton Avenue. Do we have the applicant with us?
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Good morning. Okay. I've got 5 minutes for you on the clock. If we could hear a brief presentation.
Yes, if you could bring up my support material, please. So I filed some material really addressing, I think, which is kind of the crux of this application, which is the requirement for a 3-story dwelling where a 2-story dwelling is permitted, and how that relates to the deck variances that are before you. So if we could please go to the 3rd page, please. So what I've shown here is variance number 6 relates to this actual deck here itself. Because this is considered the 2nd floor, this now is a projection and a size that is not permitted, which again leads to the request for the 16.8 square meter deck. This is functionally the 1st floor. If we could continue on to the next page, please. The actual deck on the 2nd floor is 3.98 meters, which is again permitted by the zoning bylaw. If we could go down to the next page, please. There were changes to the zoning bylaw recently that dealt with the floor that is closest to the 1st floor, to the average grade, is what is now considered the 1st floor. If the basement were to be excavated, this additional green area, which is 1.07 meters, we would now be considered a 2-story dwelling under the zoning bylaw, which would eliminate the variance for the number of stories, as well as the variance for the size of the balcony. If we could go down one more page, please. And just zoom out, please, so we can see both. Yes. So what I've done here is I've actually just taken a screen snapshot of the two of them side by side. On the left, we have the proposal that is before you today. Again, considered a 3-story dwelling. And on the right, with that green area, if it were to be excavated, this would now be considered a 2-story dwelling. If we look, the massing and the sizings are identical. It is merely a change to what is below grade. Lastly, in terms of the building length, if we were to go back to the site plan, we would see that this dwelling is not built as far into the rear yard as the adjacent property to the east at 181 and is slightly past the existing property at 117. That's essentially my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions the committee might have.
Okay, thank you. Some questions? No. I had a technical question. Just looking at your planning rationale document, variance number 6, it is related to the balcony, which I believe, I guess from a zoning standpoint is being considered the 2nd level, but for all intents and purposes is being accessed, just for clarification's sake, that's the deck that's being accessed from what's being sort of used as a ground level. Is that correct?
Correct, Mr. Chair. And if we actually go back to it, we did put some additional stairs, so it actually is lower.
That was my next question. Yeah. So is there
Correct.
What is the height of that platform that's accessed off of what's being used as the ground level?
With the stairs going down, it is now it is 2 meters above grade.
It's 2 meters above grade. Okay. And prior to that, so the drawing that is before us, drawing A7, that is correct and reflects the current condition. I do actually I do see the steps off the door in the lowered platform there with a 2 meter mark. So that is up to date and that is correct.
Correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the applicant at this time? Okay, if there's no other questions, we have another speaker. No other speakers. Okay. Okay. If no other questions, we're prepared to move into committee at this time. Mr. Gully?
Sure, Chair, I'm prepared to speak on this. I think Jonathan gave a great presentation on this, answered some of the questions that I had. I think the variances that are being requested are appropriate. They are compatible with the performance standards of some of the built structures on the street. I'm going to move approval to authorize these variances subject to the planning condition of February the 5th and urban forestry condition number 3. I think the proposal is compatible. It complements the neighborhood.
Okay. A seconder? Second by Mr. Reed. All in favor? Okay, the motion passes. The application is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just going to take a moment here. I've got a bit of a reboot happening to our system, so I just need a moment for that to complete. Apologize. It looks like it'll resolve itself, but my system just went down. Yeah, it's working its way through. You can take a look, but I don't have anything on. It just did a restart. Yeah, we can. Yeah, we're gonna have to break for 5. We'll be back as soon as possible. Okay, apologies. We've resolved our technical issue. We are back now. So we're on item number 5. 4926 Bathurst Street. The purpose of the application is to seek relief from bylaw 1167-2023 OLT and permit revisions to the mixed-use development on the subject site. We've got a number of variances, including minimum gross floor area for non-residential use, as well as height, as well as the number of stories, as well as visitor parking, as well as variance for some setbacks. We have the applicant with us.
Yes, I'm here.
Good morning, and thank you for your patience.
Good morning.
Okay, I'm going to ask for a brief presentation. Oh, thank you. Name and address, please.
Sure. My name is Peter Smith. I'm a planner and partner with BATHURST. Our address is 3 Church Street, Suite 200, Toronto, M5E 1M2.
Okay, and just to confirm, there are no changes to the application at this time?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, all right, floor is yours.
First of all, I also wanted to introduce Jason Park and Saul Wassermule, who are here with me and will be available to answer any questions. If you could put up the presentation that I filed just last week, I just want to go through that fairly briefly. As we start getting into it, those are the plans. The presentation is different. So I'm going to start talking, and that as well not the plan, is not the presentation. So I'll keep talking as you find that. So the site is located at the southwest corner of Finch and Bathurst. It's within an apartment neighborhood context. That's it. Perfect. Thank you so much. If you go to page 2, that will give you just the apartment neighborhood context. If you go to page 3, this is from the official plan, and the site is identified for intensification and emphasis on new housing in the official plan, given the avenues identification that applies to it on map 2 and the mixed use areas designation. If we go to the next slide, what I wanted to do then is just to explain the 5 variances that are in front of the committee. The proposal essentially is simply to add 5 stories to the proposed building as shown outlined in red. That results in 2 of the variances, which are directly related to the height, both in stories from 24 to 29 stories and in meters from 74 meters to 91 meters. The rest of the building, the height of the podium and so on remains the same. If we go to the next slide, that additional height translates directly into the gross floor area variance, which is variance number 1. If we go to the next slide, there is a minor variance to the building envelope, which is shown on this diagram. This is variance 4, and that area in red is actually a canopy over the entrance to the parking garage entrance. It is 1 story in height, and really what we're doing is extending the first story terrace so that it's got a consistent setback from the south lot line, and that provides for a larger outdoor amenity terrace to maintain the 2 square meter per unit amenity space requirement. And if we can go to the next slide, this again is indirectly related to the overall variance because the number of parking spaces would remain the same and the ratios would be reduced, as you see there on the screen, just simply because the number of units has increased. If we go to the next slide, I'll just take this opportunity to note that you've got comments from both city planning and for transportation services. Both of them expressed no objections to the minor variances, and both of them also recommend a number of conditions. I want to advise the committee that all of those conditions are acceptable. So if I can then use the rest of my presentation, I don't see how much time I've got remaining, but 2 minutes. Okay, I think that should be just enough. Just to speak to the merits. And really what it comes down to is that this proposal will result in more housing being delivered, and it will be delivered with no unacceptable impacts. And so if I can explain that in a little bit greater detail, this slide here talks about the increase in the number of units. The bylaw actually does not include a maximum unit count, so we don't need a variance, but the result of the 5 additional stories is that the total number of units will increase by about 90 units from 259 to 349 units. There will be as well 9 more 3-bedroom units for a total of 35. And so given the fact that Toronto is currently in a housing crisis, that City Council has adopted a housing pledge to create 285,000 new units over the coming decade, and that it's identified locations like this as the type of location that can actually accommodate more housing. This is a proposal that is entirely in line with that. There is one email in opposition, and it criticizes the proposal as a luxury condo development. This is not. Market condominiums typically provide the most affordable market housing options, and this is the case here. And then if I can deal with the question of impact, next slide shows the change in the overall massing, and you can see there's very little change. And then I'm going to speak very quickly to shadow studies. So next slide, and it will show, if you just scroll through the various shadow studies, that with the additional 5 stories, it does not reach any of the low-rise neighborhoods. This is a site that is substantially separated from any of the closest residential neighborhoods, primarily to the east and northeast. And you can see that the shadow study shows that the shadows would actually never touch the neighborhood to the northeast, and it would only be the neighborhood right there to the to the east at 6:18, almost in the evening hours. I actually got through my presentation, so I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Okay, it doesn't seem like we have any questions at this time.
Thank you very much then.
Thank you. We have some more speakers, I see. If I can ask our next speaker to state their name and address.
Mr. Chair, we have a James Hennessy unmuted.
Mr. Hennessy? Mr. Hennessy, are you with us?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we're just trying to contact him now.
Okay, very good.
Bridge Court.
Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, I sent in a couple of comments. Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, sorry for the interruption. I just had some comments for the site proposal. I unfortunately didn't have a chance to look at some of these new documents, so I didn't realize the size of the tower was being increased from what was approved, or I should say recommended by the OLT. So I'm concerned about at the corner of the intersection, the setbacks that are proposed. From what I understand, there is a new transportation plan, but I just saw it posted yesterday. So I'm not sure what it's talking about. There was talk before of a corridor study for Finch that wasn't done regarding, I guess, possible widenings or adding a bus lane to Finch. So if there's a minimum setback on this property, that could impact on trying to improve traffic at the intersection. As has been reported in the news many times, this is a very dangerous intersection. The last one I could find was 2009, so the #1 worst for accidents at the intersection because of the amount of traffic. With the minimum setback, I'm concerned that at the bus stops, there's not very much room for people to transfer between the two bus stops to go east and west on Finch and south and, basically south on Bathurst. So I guess basically we're just concerned that on Kingsbridge, just with the size of this building, it's just out of place with the rest of the neighborhood, which are 6-story buildings. I guess that's about it. I've put more comments in my email, but I don't know if you want me just to repeat all those.
I don't think it's necessary. Just to confirm, we did receive a letter of objection. We did receive your letter of objection, and it was reviewed in advance of the hearing. So we did receive those notes. If that's helpful for clarification.
Okay, yeah, we made several points on the letter that we drafted, and that was from the board of directors at 8 Kingsbridge Court, which is also a condo building, which is 6-story. Our concerns just regarding to the impact it would have on I know they don't call it a low-rise neighborhood, but it's basically 6-story buildings on the southwest area around this intersection.
Okay.
So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions? Okay, no questions at this time. We have another speaker.
Mr. Chair, we have a
Mr. Chairman,
Jason. Jason Park, but I believe they may be associated with the applicant.
I
You can
believe so,
clarify.
yes. The applicant noted that.
Yeah, yes, that's correct. Sorry. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. It is Jason Park. I'm counsel for the applicant. I'm just here to answer any questions, and I have nothing further to add to the presentation made by Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Park. I see one other speaker on our list. I don't know if they're with us. Mr. Wassermull? Oh, he is with the applicant as well. Okay.
Yeah, yes, I am with the applicant. Thank you.
Okay.
Here to answer questions if you need any answers. Thank you.
Okay. If there's no other speakers, I'd like to give the applicant a chance to respond to the comments from the gentleman in opposition.
Yes, thanks very much. And so I think there were 5 comments. First of all, the question about the setbacks at the ground floor. First of all, I'll note nothing is changing from what was already approved by the Ontario Land Tribunal and the city. But what actually is being proposed, just to clarify, is a 3-meter setback from the property line to the new building, which is something that doesn't exist today. So in fact, the public realm around the bus stops and so on will be expanded. It won't be contracted. He mentioned something about a new transportation plan. There's no new transportation plan. The approved access is off of Bathurst, right at the south end of the site. The existing 2 other curb cuts will be removed. Again, none of that is changing from what was approved by the city and by the OLT. In terms of a corridor study, there are discussions going on about bus lanes along Finch, but it's important to note that the right-of-way along Finch is extraordinarily wide. It's over 45 meters, up to 50 meters in places. So there's lots of room to be able to accommodate bus lanes within the right-of-way. In terms of some of the comments about accidents and traffic congestion and so on, there was a detailed transportation impact study done as part of the rezoning that was again approved by the OLT and the city, including a review by the city transportation services as part of that. And again, as I noted, the number of parking spaces is not being increased. It's staying exactly the same as what it was. So there shouldn't be any change to the conclusions of that transportation review. And then I think the final comment was just that 8 Kingsbridge is low rise and a tall building here would be out of place. It's already been recognized that this is a different location. It's right on the corner, whereas 8 Kingsbridge is interior to the apartment neighborhood. Council and the OLT have already approved a 24-story building here. It's recognized that the built form is going to be different. The only question in front of the committee is really just, does the difference from 24 to 29 make any particular difference, and does it meet the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw? And in my opinion, it does.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Gully? No questions. Yeah, a question from my colleague, Mr. Reid.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for there's a lot of very good materials on file, and the requests that are being made are clear. I understand them. I'd just like you to speak a little bit to the process here. Like you received an OLT order just several months ago. So I know in the materials there was talk about cost analysis and that being the driver for coming back for these variances. But what is being requested is significant. It's almost a 20% increase in density. So from and I know you've referenced increasing housing supply and all those positive things, but can you talk a little bit more to the process and what made the decision to come back so soon after the order was given?
Yes, and I can say that we had quite a number of discussions with city planning about this before coming back with this minor variance application. It's really a function of 2 main things. maybe three main things. The first is, as I said, there's an opportunity here to actually add more height without having any of those normal planning impacts about shadowing and overview and so on that you would get with most sites. But there's been two things that have really changed. One is on the cost side, and not to say that, you know, the justification for the increased height is the cost, but it is definitely part of the reason. The hard costs have gone up tremendously. There's a letter from Finnegan Marshall, who are the sort of acknowledged top cost consultants, who've indicated that those hard costs have increased by about 30 or 35%. In some locations in the city, those types of costs can be more easily absorbed. In this location, in this particular area of the city, and also recognizing that this is a gas station and there are cleanup costs associated with it. Mr. Wassermuhl could speak to this in greater detail, but the increase in density it will provide 90 additional units, but it will also make sure that any residential units are a viable proposition on the site. Otherwise, we don't get the housing that we all anticipated we would get when we started the application in the first place. So essentially, that's why, and it does fully align with what we're seeing throughout the city, which is the city is now saying, because of the housing pledge, because of the housing crisis and so on, we need to make decisions on individual sites where we don't reduce arbitrarily the height and the density of buildings in a way that actually reduces the number of housing units that can be achieved consistent with good planning. So that was what we said to planning staff. That's what we're saying to this committee, and that explains the rationale for this particular minor variance decision. And I do recognize, you know, relatively shortly after the OLT approval.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, it doesn't seem like we have any other questions at this time. Thank you very much to everyone that spoke on this file. We're going to move into committee now.
Chair, I'm prepared to speak on this item.
Of course, yes. Mr. Sully?
Chair, what we have before us today is a request for 4 variances to authorize 4 variances on a project at 4926 Bathurst Street, where a decision by the OLT was rendered about a year ago, less than a year ago, August 11th, 2022. What we have before us is a justification report from BuzzField. We have a transportation study from ALE Consultants. We have a city planning report. We have a transportation planning report, all commenting on the proposal. I've reviewed all the material in the file that was provided to us, in addition to the consultant's report, the BuzzField report, etc. And I've listened very carefully to both the verbal and written submission by Mr. Hennessy. Thank you, Mr. Hennessy. And also by Rutherford and Matthews, and I thank them as well. Having taken into consideration all the materials, including the 2 deputants, I feel that this project does not present any adverse impact by the proposed addition of 5 additional stories to go from 24 to 29 stories, and adding 90 additional units from 259 to 349 at a major intersection in the city of Toronto. Major intersection of Bathurst Finch. It's my view that the variances being requested meet the intent and purposes of the official plan and the zoning bylaw. The proposal is desirable given the conditions in Toronto with respect to housing and where housing should be maximized and intensified. It's desirable, it's appropriate at this location, and when you come right down to it, adding those additional 5 stories and those additional 90 units, there is no adverse impact from the original proposal. I'm going to make a motion to approve and authorize the 4 variances subject to the planning condition of, as stated in the report of January 26th of planning, and revised transportation report wherein 3 conditions are being asked to be adhered to. And I understand there are no urban forestry conditions. So based on those 2 conditions, move approval, Chair.
Do I have a seconder? Second by Ms. Casson. I will also note, Mr. Sully, thank you for summing up the application. I noted that I had not provided a kind of summation of the materials that were submitted after my computer crash, but you did a very good job of ensuring to everyone listening today that information was received and reviewed. So second by Ms. Casson. All in favor? Okay, the motion carries. The application is approved. Moving on to item number 6, 597 Castlefield Avenue. The purpose of the application is a proposal for a rear deck. And we have 1 variance with us, before us, for rear deck projection from a rear main wall. On file, I've got some materials from the applicant. Do we have the applicant with us?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Hello. Okay, if you could just state your name and address for us.
Thank you. My name is Kin. I am from Action Home Services, agent for the homeowner of Nicholas.
And your address?
And of course, yes, my address is 16 Spinnaker Way in Suite 1B on Ontario.
Thank you. Panel members, do we need to hear a presentation on this item? No. To the applicant, I don't think we need to hear a formal presentation on this item.
Great.
But the floor is yours should you wish to say anything prior to heading into committee, or actually I should say if I should ask first, do any of the members have any questions? We have no questions as well. So I'd like to provide this opportunity should you wish to say anything.
Understood. Thank you very much for my 5 minute of glory, I suppose. I do understand that my project do pale in comparison to the one that we had before. Now, I do want to state that, yes, we acknowledge that this deck is going to be more than the limitations of what the bylaw states. However, from the context of the neighboring backyard, which of course in the west side, we are seeing a structure that is way beyond what we're proposing, as well as in comparison to the one on the east hand side of us, of this property, it's a very similar depth in terms of the decking. So then I do feel that it is quite appropriate to propose a deck of this size, even though that we do understand that it is further than the limitations allowed.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
We have any other questions? Okay, if there's no other questions and we don't have any other speakers, let's move into committee. Mr. Reid?
Thanks, Chair. I think what we have before us is very straightforward. It's a slight expansion of an existing condition. And the fact that there's no negative input from the neighbors goes to show that what's working, what's existing there is working. I think that the deck length is mitigated by the fact that it's angled on the one side and that it's remaining within the setback on the on the opposite side. So I think this is supportable, and I think it meets the 4 tests, and I move approval without condition.
Great. We have a seconder. Second by Ms. Casson. All in favor? Okay, the motion carries. The application is approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Moving
very
on.
much for your time.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 7, 115 Ronald Avenue. The purpose of the application is to construct a one-story addition to the rear of the existing industrial building. Before us, we have a variance for side yard setback. On file, I have materials from the applicant, as well as a letter from the representative of 111 Ronald Avenue. Do we have the applicant with us?
Yes, I'm here.
If you could state your name and address for us, please.
My name is Jason Rodriguez from InterArc. I'm at 1351 Dundas Street in the city of Toronto.
Okay, just a moment. Okay, let's hear a brief presentation.
Good morning to the chair and panel members of the committee and city staff. On behalf of the property owners, I'm here to present the minor variance request that is before the committee today with respect to the subject property. The application before the committee is to permit a reduced side yard setback of 1.11 meters, which is in line with the existing building at 115 Ronald Avenue, in lieu of the required side yard setback of 3 meters on at least one side of the lot. This variance is being requested to permit the construction of a one-story addition to the rear of the existing building and is required in order for the addition to align with the existing south wall of the building at 115 Ronald Avenue. There is no opposition to this requested reduced side yard setback from any of the neighboring properties. We suggest that the proposal is in keeping with the fabric and character of the existing neighborhood. There are no comments from planning staff in opposition to this proposal, hence we believe the application is reasonable and desirable development for the subject lands. This requested variance to the bylaw is minor in nature and in keeping with the general intent and purpose of both the zoning bylaw and the official plan. And I would like to thank the committee for their time and consideration in this matter. I'd be happy to answer any questions or address any concerns that they may have at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions? Okay, no questions. We have another speaker.
Chair, my name is Pulkit Sahi. I'm here on behalf of the owner of the neighboring property, 1280 Castlefield Avenue, aka 111 Ronald Avenue. I'm a student at law at Pallet Vallow LLP. The address is 77 City Center Drive, Suite 300, Mississauga, Ontario. If you look to the survey in the application materials, the neighbor is the property to the south or to the right on the survey. And we're just here to put our client's position on the record in regards to the right-of-way claim and just to alert to the committee that this is not settled. It's noted as a claimed right-of-way, and what we believe 115 Ronald Avenue owners are saying is that they have a prescriptive easement which has to meet certain tests, and we do not agree that it meets those tests. If it factors into your decisions and say that this is not a settled matter, we just wanted to make sure that the committee is aware of this. Additionally, our client has informed us that there are certain construction materials and items being placed on this right-of-way, and it doesn't seem that any new structures were being authorized to be built on this right-of-way, so we're not sure why there's being materials placed there. As right-of-ways are about access and easements, you just can't obstruct. So our client is just concerned about these materials being left on the right-of-way. In sum, we just wanted to bring to your attention that this right-of-way claim has not been settled. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions? No questions. Okay. I will turn it back to the applicant, a chance to respond.
have any bearing on the application that's before the committee. The application is for side yard setback. That claim is an instrument that is registered on title that the surveyor had included on his document. Save and, regardless of the claim, the matter before the committee is for reduced side yard, which is got nothing to do with the lands south of the subject lot. Also, I'd like to point out that in the letter that was filed with the committee from the solicitor who just spoke, they also state that they have no objection to the minor variance itself with respect to the side yard. And also, with respect to this claim, if this claim was actually attached to the lot, the minor variance wouldn't be required because we would provide the 3 meters that the bylaw that is being requested. So we're going through this process as a result of fully acknowledging that the claim is something that has not been resolved yet between the owners of both properties.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions? Okay, there's no questions. We're going to head into committee at this time. Mr. Reid.
Thanks, Chair. I'm happy to bring a motion on this application. I think that what's being requested is extremely minor, and the impacts of approving it are nil. I was slightly concerned about the slope in the back, but this is retained to, it's the addition is remaining below the retaining wall, and that gives me some comfort. I know there is some dispute about the right-of-way. I don't think that influences at all this application we have before us. This is a one-story addition that brings the length of this building to its neighboring almost twin. And I can see no negative impact, so I move approval without condition.
Do I have a seconder? Second by Ms. Casson. All in favor? Motion is approved. Application is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to suggest a 5-minute break, bathroom break at this time, and then we'll push through to the end of our morning agenda when we get back. And we're back. We are on item number 8, 42 Alexandra Wood. Proposal of the application is to construct a rear one-story addition to the existing dwelling. Before us, I have variances for building length, building depth, as well as north side yard setback. On file, I have materials from the applicant, as well as form letters of support from 15, 40, and 42 Forest Wood. Do we have the applicant with us?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. It's Mr. Bronskill again, acting as agent on behalf of this applicant.
Good morning. Just a question for staff. I see we have a second speaker. Is it in addition to, no, do we just have the one? Mr. Bronskill, I'm looking at my fellow members, and it doesn't appear we need a full presentation on this. Do we have any questions? We don't have any questions. The floor is yours, should you wish to say anything.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sensing the mood in the room, I would say 3 things. I'm here to answer any questions if you have them. 2, we did attempt to, in our letter, explain why the variances are being sought. And in support of that, the architects did prepare a 4-page visual that we thought did a really good job of explaining what has changed since the previous decisions that were never implemented, and why ultimately it's actually less massing at the rear. And I think, Mr. Chair, the 3rd thing, that in part has led to, as you noted, the 3 form letters of support, including one from an adjacent neighbor who has an improved view quarter out of some side windows now as a result of these changes and more light. And those letters of support are from both side neighbors and the rear neighbor at 25 Forest Wood. So I certainly commend the application to you for approval.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions? No questions or comments at this time. Okay, we're prepared to move into committee.
Chair, I'm prepared to speak on this matter.
Of course.
I think the variances that are being requested are appropriate, they're desirable. All 4 tests are being met. Move approval, no conditions.
Do I have a seconder? Second by Ms. Casson. All in favor? Okay, motion carries. The application is approved.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Item number 9, 102 Stayner Avenue. Purpose of the application is a proposal to construct an attached garage to the east side of the residential dwelling. Before us, we have variances for rear yard setback, building length, building depth, and lot coverage. On file, I have materials from the applicant, 2 memorandums from Urban Forestry, memorandum from Transportation, as well as a letter of objection from 99 Stayner Avenue. I see one speaker. Do we have Mr. Sherman with us?
Yes, I'm here. Max Sherman, Macroplan Limited, 5145 Steeles Avenue West.
Okay, just give us a moment. Before I ask for a presentation, do you have any questions, or do we need to hear a full presentation on this item? It doesn't appear we need a full presentation, and it doesn't appear we have any questions at this time, but we do actually. Let's jump to Mr. Reed for a question.
Thanks, Chair. To the applicant, a couple of the variances do look large to me, number 1 and number 4. And these are, I think, just directly related to the size of the garage, which is an extremely large addition for the purpose of a garage. Can you speak to those variances and the purpose of that garage? Thanks.
Yes, there was an application which was granted, and that was for a building permit to build the house immediately beside what we now approved or now presented as a garage. The element from the client's point of view is that he didn't have a garage built into the brand new building. However, because of many referrals with regards to the theft of cars, including in this neighborhood, we decided that we would have the architect draft up the garage addition. We then had several variations of it. We did hire a forester to look after it, Kunz Forestry, and we checked with all of the neighbors, not all of them, but 90% of the neighbors surrounding this house if there were any objections at that time, and at that time there were none. I had submitted all of the signed documents from the neighbors. There was no objection with regards to it. It's a one-story garage addition. It will not really impact anyone. It's on the east side and will have its own driveway into it. But the client feels it is much safer having a car inside the garage than outside. It's a double garage so that family and himself can go into it and make good use of it. The element of it, it is not going to cover anything from the signing of the information of the clients all the way around it. That is the major reason for having the garage as a second thought, because of safety, because of making sure that if anything, we make it a little more difficult for it to be stolen, and hopefully it never will be, and as well as making sure that we have enough space for a double garage. With regards to, is it too large? No, it's a straightforward building that is on the back end of the property so that impact will not be there. We feel that it is appropriate for the planning side of it. It is good planning. The majority of housing units without a garage is very small. There may be about 4 other houses built in the very early 2021, 20 area. And this is one now that a garage is on, which is almost identical to what most of the houses in and around the area contains. Again, we have dealt with all of the 4 items that we have looked at with regards to the size of the building. We felt it was reasonable, providing that the neighbors on all sides were in agreement. They are. We have spoken to them. I have affidavits which I sent through to the municipality. So we're satisfied with that. With regards to one item, the forestry, urban forestry item, we comply or will comply once we have done the study for a privately owned tree. The actual tree is on the neighbor's side, and it is fenced for purposes of separating the 2 lots at the boundary. We have spoken with urban forestry, and they have withdrawn their objection to this parcel because we do not think, and we have Kunz's report on that, that this street will be affected. We will be using hand shovels to do it all by hand, or a water pressure system to put in any of the elements with regards to trying not to disturb any of the root system that grow laterally along this boundary edge.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome, yes.
Any other questions? Okay. If there are no other questions, and I see that we have no other speakers, we will move into committee at this time. Mr. Reed, to your comment, I did have a little bit of concern with respect to the size of the overall garage. I mean, I think proportionately, when you actually look at the dimensions, while I think it is appropriate to add a garage, I question whether or not the size of the garage is appropriate, particularly, just in the fact that some of the variances we're looking at, the numbers are, from a quantitative standpoint, they are pretty large, and I think, it stands with reason that they would be able easily to construct a garage and mitigate some of the quantitative variances being asked for. But that said, I do recognize that the applicant, I appreciate that they have spoken with the neighbors. I do recognize it is a bit of a unique condition, given the lot and given the fact that the road kind of pinches up towards, so a number of things to consider here.
Agreed. No, that was my concern. But I do appreciate the agent's description of the situation, and I agree. I think the fact that this is on a corner lot that does that situation with the adjacencies with the neighbors, and the fact that the garage is limited to one floor,
yeah,
I think that goes to limiting the impacts of this, even though it is a very large garage. But the relationship between the new walls of that garage and the neighbors' properties are they're not highly sensitive. So I'm satisfied with the explanation, and I do think this is a reasonable application. I would move approval subject to urban forestry condition number 2 and transportation services comments.
The seconder or comment.
No, just clarification.
Of
The
course.
transportation was just advisory, right? So no conditions for transportation.
Okay, pardon me. I thought there were. But if they're just advisory, then yes, we can leave those off.
I believe they were just advisory.
Okay.
Okay, second by Mr. Gully. Oh,
We can pull up the transportation services memorandum.
yeah, you know what? Sorry, before we complete, I know we're in the middle of a motion. Just want to, let's just ensure that we have our, so we're covered here. We didn't miss anything.
Okay.
That's
They
sufficient?
Yes, they are advisory.
Okay.
Thank you, Dominic.
Yeah, very good. So we do have the motion by Mr. Reed, second by Mr. Gully. All in favor? Okay. The motion is approved. The application is approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item number 10, 61 Northwood Drive. Proposal of the application is to construct a new dwelling. Before us, we have variances for east and west side yard setback, pedestrian entrance height, front porch height, side yard setback for front porch, side yard setback for front porch balcony, side yard setback for rear deck, driveway width, rear deck projection, building length, building depth, side exterior main wall height on the east and west elevations, number of stories, as well as the width of a vehicular entrance through the front main wall. On file, I have materials from the applicant, as well as memorandum from Urban Forestry, Transportation, and a staff report from Community Planning. Can we get the applicant online?
Hi, yes, I'm here. My name is Nushin Mozaffari from Hyphen Studio, representing my client, owner of 61 Northwood.
And your address?
My address is 3429 Young Street.
Okay, thank you very much and welcome back. I should ask, are you proposing any changes to the variances before we get into this?
Yes.
Okay, if
Yes,
we can.
variance number 8.
Yeah,
Variance
just
number 8. is reduced to 4.2 meter.
Hold on. Let's pull up the public notice, staff, and just if you can identify which is the first variance that you'd like to change or amend.
Yes, only one item is changed, and that's variance number 8.
Okay.
The projection of the rear deck is reduced to 4.2 meter.
Okay, so variance number 8, reduced to 4.2 meter projection from the rear wall. Anything
Yes.
else?
No, that's all.
Okay. That said, do we need a full presentation on this? No, it doesn't seem we need a full presentation. I will ask my colleagues if they have any questions. Yes, Mr. Reed.
Thank you, Chair. Just to the question of the length, which is somewhere around 22 meters, I think. Can you just explain what that is? That limited to the rear walkout, or can you describe the length variance, please?
Yes, sure. I just wanted to summarize the application and do a brief presentation, but if it's not required, on this site plan, we have shown all the dimensions, and this proposed length is for the building itself, but 1.37 of the rear, it's from this length, it's not for the full width of the building, and only half of the building projects more. And the reason for asking for this variance is that, as you see, this property is very deep. The depth of the lot is more than 200 feet. And still with this length and a very decent front setback, more than half of the lot depth is left as a rear setback and rear yard. And this is a very common variance in this neighborhood because of the size and the depth of these properties. I have provided a few similar cases on top just for your reference. These are only the ones that are even more than what we are asking for, and I know that a recent case in the same street is approved for 22.6 as well. It's number 93 Northwood, and that's why that planning has no concerns with our application and is supporting it. And I should also mention that with this length and side setback variance, we still don't have any variance for lot coverage, and the proposed building is even smaller than allowed lot coverage.
Thank you.
I had a question concerning variance number 7 and 13, which relates to the driveway width as well as the opening at the front of the dwelling. I'm just hoping, I have a concern just with respect to those variances. Perhaps to the applicant, if you could speak to some precedent that might speak to that request for those two variances.
Yes, if you can go to the first page of my presentation material, it's more clear on that site plan. It's the same information, but it's more clear there. The driveway that we are proposing is very narrow at the front, and it's even narrower than usual. It's only 12 feet. If the staff can show my presentation material. And the driveway is basically wider inside the property. There is this width that we are proposing at the front for the driveway is basically existing to remain, and our intention is to preserve a tree that is located at the front yard, and the driveway is widening up inside the property, so the look of the driveway from a streetscape is not unusual. It's even less than what we see on 50-footer lots. And also we don't have any variance for the landscaping or soft landscaping. And we tried our best to accommodate this three-car garage without triggering any landscaping variance or making a negative impact for the driveway and the streetscape. And that's why the transportation has no objection to the proposal, because we are keeping the existing driveway at the front and basically making it wider just in front of the garage doors.
And just on that drawing, we're looking on the site plan drawing, there's a hatched portion to the left of that sloped driveway. Is that, what's the differentiation there between that area and the rest of the driveway?
That's basically hard landscaping. That's like a walkway connecting the driveway to the front steps and porch. And that portion is just the different material and different definition in regards to the bylaw. The white portion is the driveway, and that portion is hard landscaping.
Okay, so it's from a representation point of view, it's essentially dealing with, it's essentially hardscape area both sides, but they're differentiated just to distinguish from a more of a technical sense, I presume.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Chair, just a point of clarification then, Nasheen, on that driveway, you realize that Transportation Services, even though in their conclusions they say they have no objections, there are two conditions that they speak about. The second one relates also to urban forestry. You are aware of those two conditions. Even though they say there's no transportation-related variances, et cetera, Part B speaks to an urban forestry issue. So those two, A and B, are actually conditions of transportation. You're aware of that, correct?
Yes, we are aware of that, and we are aware that there is a condition from urban forestry as well, and we are okay with that. And as I mentioned, the whole purpose of this configuration for the driveway and this shape is to keep that, to preserve that tree in the front yard. So we are okay with that, and we have already hired an arborist to work with the forestry. Our intention is to keep that tree, and that's why we are keeping the existing driveway to be remained at the front.
Thank you, Nasheen.
That answers your question then? Yeah, okay, thanks. Any other questions? Okay. If there's no other questions, we will head into committee now.
Chair, I'm prepared to speak on this item.
Yeah, of course.
I have reviewed all the variances. Indeed, there are a lot of variances here. And at first glance, it's a bit overwhelming that to come in to construct a new dwelling, you need that many variances. But each of the variances, in my view, there's justification for them individually and also collectively. The length was of concern to me initially, but having considered their submission and also looking at the particulars of what applies to that length, I'm okay with the length as well. So Chair, I'm prepared to move approval to the revised application, which amends variance number 8 to read the proposed rear deck projects 4.2 from the rear wall, and is subject to planning conditions of February the 6th, and transportation conditions of February 8, 1A and B, and urban forestry condition 3 for CIL.
Do I have a seconder? Second by Mr. Reed. All in favor? Okay. The motion carries. The application is approved as amended.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
You as well. All right. Moving on to the last item of our morning agenda. Number 11, 189 Randolph Road. The purpose of the application is a proposal to construct a 2-story rear addition. We have one variance before us, which is variance for side yard setback. Before us, I have materials from the applicant as well as some form letters of support. Do we have the applicant with us?
Good morning, Mr. Chair. My name is Trevor Gain. I'm the applicant on the file.
Good morning. Just a moment. Can you give us your address, please, Mr. Gain?
Yeah, it's 10 Celebrity Place in Markham.
Okay, thank you. Do we need to hear full presentation on this? I'm looking to my colleagues, and it doesn't appear we need to hear a presentation on this. Do we have any questions for the applicant? It doesn't appear we have any questions either. The time is yours, should you wish, or should you have anything to say, but with that in mind.
Yeah, I have really nothing to add, given you guys been at it for quite a while, and I'm sure lunch is pending. I'll just say this is just a rear addition. It was an existing 1-story rear addition. We took it down to the foundation and building it right back up on the existing footprint. Thus, it triggers the side yard setback on the south side. So we spoke to the neighbors, the form letter, so everybody's in support. So it's probably the best definition of a minor variance so far.
Thank you.
Chair, both adjacent owners are okay with the project too.
Yes, yeah, I did note that. Okay, so if there's no other questions of the applicant, we will move into committee. Mr. Reed.
Thanks, Chair. I'm happy to move approval of this. This is the most minor variance application we've seen today, and it's an existing condition that's just being confirmed, extending out the existing side yard setback. It's a sensitive infill project, and the variance is minor. So I move approval with no conditions.
Do I have a seconder? Second by Ms. Casson. All in favor? The motion carries. The application is approved. That concludes our morning session. We will be back to start our afternoon session at, I believe, 2 p.m. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Have a good lunch.
Thank you.